Good morning from the Eastern time zone to everybody that's out there. Hope you're doing well today. Our thoughts were people that have had a lot of tragedies lately down south, and prayers and thoughts are with you. But thank you for coming today and enjoying another Saturday of college football that we have today. Specifically in the Southeastern Conference today, we got a number of games that we have coming up that have a lot of interest for some people. A better week than maybe last week. It's one thing though is it's a wonderful Saturday in the Southeast to enjoy football. We're moving into the fall season now, even though some states is there really such a thing as fall with the heat, but it's cooler, crisper weather. You start to see the leaves change. Um, Eventually, in some places, snow may start falling before the end of the season. But it's a great time to enjoy football these days. Much better than the hot months of August and September. Now we're moving into October specifically. Other reasons that people love is Halloween, a really spooky time of year, and a one with a lot of fun and friendship with people with various traditions and stuff with the Halloween coming up. And all the decorations, the costumes, things like that. It's a good time of year to have some fun and to enjoy many things that are out there. Before you know it, the year will be over and we'll be in 2023 because it seems like as you get older, the time flies faster and faster all the time. But hey, thank you. If you're not here today, if you watch on the replay, love it. Leave a hopefully we'll have fun today and you'll leave a like and sub to the channel so we can try to get 100 to help a friend of mine uh, take it easy so I can get a shorter YouTube title. So I don't know what that means, but apparently it's a big deal. But hey, we all have goals. So um, what we'll do today, if you're new to the program, is we're just going to take some time, recap the picks that we made on Thursday night's episode where our special guest was Rambling Canuck. We talked football. We reviewed the prior week's games. We looked at this week's upcoming action, and then we just for some fun had some picks, picking winners of this week's games. Just remember though, folks, that whatever you see here is just for fun. We're not a gambling site. We're not professional. We don't do anything towards points and stuff. It's just straight up winners and losers, and just really having a good time with friends and just relaxing and chilling. And it's always good, at least I find, to chat college football. It gives something different to do. Um, so without any further ado, let's move on into taking a look at our week coming up this week. First of all, we'll look at the current SEC standings here. No surprises on both sides. At the top in the East, Georgia is tied with Kentucky and Tennessee atop the SEC standings. The Bulldogs still have to play both the teams coming down the road. Both teams have both beaten Florida, who was probably their main challenger for second place, and now they're on a rendezvous against Georgia down the road. What we'll see is, are they ready to kick the king off the top? We have Vanderbilt and Missouri both tied at 0-1, and Florida and South Carolina have lost both of their conference games, so they're at the bottom of the East. Over in the West, there's Alabama, who's a fixture on that side of the bracket, but three other teams have also won one conference game. Auburn, LSU, and Texas A&M all are at 1-0. Arkansas, by virtue of losing to Texas A&M last week, is in the second place at 1-1. Yet Ole Miss is yet to play a conference game, and Mississippi State lost at LSU last week. So still early in the season. Overall, the teams in the league are doing pretty well. Nobody is below 500. You have 5 undefeated teams, 5 with teams with 1 loss. So, it's a pretty good year for the league so far. But it's still, well, I'd say early, but you know what? We're really reaching the halfway point. Usually these teams play 12 games. When we're at 4, Vanderbilt's at 5. It's amazing, like we talked about a moment ago, how the time flies and it'll be 2023 before you know it. So, but that's the current standings in the East. So we'll look at the AP Top 25. The SEC is still represented very well, even though Florida drops out this week after losing a second game. Again, Georgia and Alabama are at the top. Kentucky and Tennessee are also in the top 10, with Ole Miss, Texas A&M, and Arkansas rounding out the SEC representation. And actually, not just the top 25, but the SEC has 7 teams in the top 20 in the AP poll. So more may come in as the season goes. You don't know if there's upsets, but you can see the trend of the Alabama and Georgia is still a fixture up at the top right now. So brings us to this week's games. Okay, there's some interesting matchups this week. You can see the picks here that we had this week between where I picked and where Ramblin' Canuck picked. And we'll look at some of the games of interest, leading off with the Alabama Crimson Tide at the Arkansas Razorbacks. This game is highly important in Arkansas. Can they knock off the number one team in the West to take a step up in trying to get a division title to go to the SEC championship game in December? The game's at home for the Razorbacks. Alabama has struggled on the road against Texas, so anything can happen in this game. And it had Arkansas won last week, I might have actually picked Arkansas for the upset in this one, but because Arkansas fell flat against the offensively struggling Texas A&M team, I stay with Alabama. I mean, you got to show me that you're going to beat somebody before I pick you. So that's why I went with Alabama this week. But it should be a good matchup. It's actually one to definitely watch on TV today. And although Arkansas may have lost last week, it's a home game. You got the big dog coming in. It's a game that could result in an upset here. Also, in my experience, that a game like this is everybody's expecting upset, but then the big dog ends up slapping down the little guy pretty badly. So, it'll be interesting to see how this game plays out. Next, we have the LSU Tigers at the Auburn Tigers, or as they say, go War Eagle. In the game of interest here is, can Auburn generate offense? They've been struggling with injuries and health at quarterback, offensive production, questions about the head coach's tenure, whereas LSU seems to have found some production on offense with the quarterback position. So it's an interesting matchup here. Rivalry games like this, you never know what's going to happen. Although Auburn seems to have the big disadvantage at this point, with some close wins at home, a blowout loss to Penn State. Anything can happen in the Southeastern Conference on any given Saturday. I've seen stranger things happen, so don't rule Auburn out, but the odds are very good that LSU will pick up this road win today. The next matchup is the Kentucky Wildcats at the Ole Miss Rebels. Kentucky undefeated so far, but struggled in some wins, specifically last week winning against Northern Illinois by 9 points at home. Some of the other games that they've had, they've struggled to beat people or weaker competition or to generate offense. But the Ole Miss has actually turned a new leaf this year. Instead of being pass heavy, they're run heavy this year. A big change from normal Lane Kiffin type offenses. So another matchup of interest here because there's so much rides on it. Both teams are undefeated in the conference, and Kentucky's got a lot riding on a potential SEC East title this year cannot afford to lose a game like this in the league. But in the last few weeks, the offense has been okay. But it took a few Florida turnovers to win that game. Somewhat struggling on offense, scoring wise, with some opponents you thought that they would score more against. But hey, a win's a win. But this game is on the road at Ole Miss. Ole Miss has been running the ball heavily the last few weeks. I go with Ole Miss in this game. Next game is the Texas A&M Aggies at the Mississippi State Bulldogs. We both chose Texas A&M on this one. Normally, I would have probably gone with Mississippi State at home, but especially with Texas A&M struggling offense. But A&M's defense is carrying the team. They're very consistent with holding opponents under 20 points. Unfortunately for one week, 17 points was not enough to ensure a victory. So after that upset loss at home to Appalachian State, looks like A&M's rebounded to beat Arkansas last week. Mississippi State, you never know with the production on offense, some of the coaching decisions. But, in this case, defense rules out here, and I will go with Texas A&M to win this game. Next, we have the Georgia Bulldogs at the Missouri Tigers. This is a pretty easy call here with Georgia, the number one team, even though they've struggled a little bit, you would think, against Kent State last week, and a few weeks ago it was against Samford. But don't rule them out. Those are just hiccups because 2 weeks ago they won at South Carolina 48-7. So look for Georgia to go on the road and make this one pretty quick work of the Missouri Tigers. Missouri has a lot of issues also on offense and defense. Missouri also had a heartbreaking loss last week at Auburn in overtime. Well, in overtime, but at the end of regulation, the kicker missed a very short chip shot field goal. And then in overtime, with their turn with the ball, the running back tried to reach across the goal line for the touchdown, but lost control of the ball, rolls in the end zone. Auburn jumps on it, game over. So it's going to be another long week for Missouri this week. So the Georgia Bulldogs will pull this one out. And the last two games are really back to the old paycheck type games. Actually, the South Carolina State at South Carolina game was played on Thursday night. South Carolina won it 50-10. Not much to say about that game. It just one of those paycheck games where somebody gets a nice payout. And another game that's not going to be played today will actually be played tomorrow, was moved because of the hurricane that came through, is Eastern Washington at Florida. The Gators are back at home after losing to Tennessee last week. Should be an easy win for them if Anthony Richardson performs like he did last week and the offensive production is where it's expected for a Florida team. Last week, Richardson threw for over 400 yards, a career high. How productive can Florida be? And they struggled at home against South Florida, but maybe this is a week that they go home and get healthy against smaller competition. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, there's some interesting games of the week. Definitely check out the Alabama-Arkansas game. LSU Auburn could be interesting just because they've had a history of some very interesting matchups and some wild endings. And the other games probably would keep an eye on a Kentucky at Ole Miss to see which one of those teams will remain undefeated, because each one is trying to advance higher in their division in the conference. So, but hey, that's the action we got this week. Some decent matchups, some not so decent matchups. But when we enter this time of year, we're starting into the heart of the conference schedule. As you see this week, 12 of the 14 teams are in action, and actually 10 of the teams are playing against each other within the conference. So we'll see a little bit more of this in the next few weeks, leading up to the end of the season, since a lot of the intersectional games have been played. This Friday, our show, SEC College Football Weekly with Dadman, will be on Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll have a special guest lined up, but we've had to switch to Friday night for this week, at least. Probably another one down the road, but check us out. It's a nice, lively discussion of football. We talk about last week's action, this week's action. I'd mentioned it earlier, but we go deeper. We actually talk to our guests about what they do, what they like about football, what's drawn onto football, the cool things of football, and in some cases, we talk about some of the controversial subjects related to college football these days. So join us then and have fun, and come and get involved in the chat. If you have questions, we try to address questions as we do. But it's a really good time that we have with this show, and hope to see you there. And don't forget to keep up with all the latest that I'm doing here, not just the college football's work, but also we're streaming Fortnite now. Some show and tells periodically I post related to some things that I find interesting that I've collected over the years. We have an eye towards doing some history down the road when we have more time, but check us out. It's not just football. I try to find other things for us to do, and it's not just Fortnite, although we're from football to Fortnite. So check us out over on Twitter at DadmanWalking55. We both broadcast generally on both channels, except for the Fortnite stream. We pick one or the other and try to rotate it. We're over on twitch.tv at DadmanWalking55, and here on YouTube at DadmanWalking55. Follow us on Twitch, like and subscribe to videos here on YouTube, and like I said earlier, let's reach 100. Let's get there. So apparently there's a difference with the link or the name of the stream. I don't understand it, but hey, 100 sounds good. It's nice. It means a lot, and it means a lot even if you can't. Oh, hey, CJ, good morning. Not yet. Oh, fetching coffee. All right. Definitely get your coffee. That is a good thing to do. Oh, man. I got my Coca-Cola right here. So it's my version of caffeine. I can't drink the hot coffee, but I can't drink the hot caffeine. I got to have the cold caffeine. But yeah, check us out. We're doing a lot of different things. Our friend CJ here plays Fortnite with us when we do the streams and stuff. And, he's done some of the artwork for our channel, especially when you look at the YouTube banner out there. He created that, and a good friend of the channel. So on that note, I think we are about done. Glad you made it in, CJ, for the end of it. We'll talk to y'all later, and y'all have a good day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.